Anytime. All right. We're going to get started, so you could do
We just had it open.
Oh, okay. Yeah, if you can quickly do it, yeah.
We have one extra chair here. Robin, we have one extra chair. There, please. Okay.
I'm going to get started. Hi, everybody. Let's get started. Welcome to Capstone Presentations 2013. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Tasha Diamond, and I'm their media project instructor. Right here is also Michael Reel, their ethics professor. So we welcome all of you, and I just want to express my appreciation to all the students who did really incredible work, and in some cases, like, really cranked it up at the end and pulled it out beautifully. So you're about to be really treated to some wonderful work, and it's sort of too bad that it has to be so just like all at once, because it's really, all of these pieces, I feel like it would be so great if we could just kind of sit with each of them and spend some time with each of them. I want to just acknowledge the incredible creativity that I witnessed going on with all you guys. Creativity is a very messy and very unsystematic and just really kind of like you have to give it up to the spirits. And I saw all of you in different ways, really letting yourselves be vulnerable and letting go with your teams and just kind of going with the flow. So it was amazing what came out of that process. And actually, this time around, I've been really, really impressed by this group's creativity. I want to also acknowledge what I also witnessed with this group, and that is really intense cohort love. And, you know, I come in at the end. Yeah. I come in at the end of your process, and I also come in when you're doing quite vulnerable work. So I'm not always probably your most popular teacher, but I still get to see a lot of who you are. And that is one thing that also really, really impressed me with this group, was just how caring and how it just seemed like there's really deep connections among you. So that's a really great gift that you have, and I'm really happy for you that you have that. There was a lot of tightness in the group. You guys had lots of fun. I am really like a fun-deprived person, so it was nice to even experience that vicariously. So all these things I just want to acknowledge and appreciate very much. As the presentations go on, I want to say maybe a few more words about some other people that were involved, but I'm going to just pass it over now to Michael Reel, who wants to say a few words. Oh, you know what? Just before I do that, I'll just tell people who don't know what this course is about. So the media project course, they have to make an individual media project and a team media project. And what we're mostly presenting today are the team projects, although there were a few individual projects that we're going to see as well. And some of the teams also, as part of their team project, use their individual projects. And you'll see that a little bit as we go on here. So some students have great capability and skill and experience with video. Some of them have started with zero. It's amazing how people can go from zero to like a really quite polished and very strong media project. And we do that in 4 weeks. And mostly they do that themselves. So, you know, that's pretty intense and very much pat on the back type of thing. Now I will pass you to Michael, who will talk about the ethics part of this capstone.
As I admitted last week, you know, for those of you who are not members of this cohort, I've taught this cohort 3 different courses in the last year. And last week when I canceled the last class, it was because I'd run out. I had no more to say. So I don't know what I'm supposed to say today. But I have great confidence in this group because I have seen not only their academic skills and their theory skills and their media and cultural studies and their ethical awareness. I've also seen them present before, and I know that this is a really talented group. It is also, as Tasha notes, remarkable what a together group this is. It's a real, I think, gift that you're giving each other, that you have created this powerful network, this kind of bonding thing. And, you know, if there are a couple of disasters today in the presentations, I know you'll survive fine. But I don't expect that. I think that this is, to me, like a celebration. It's a chance to show off. As I was telling Rose, I think that communications attracts people who like to present, who've got, you know, a bit of that ham in them, and this group is no exception. And I'm really looking forward to sharing this all with you. And I'll get out of the way now and make other comments maybe at the end. But congratulations already on what you've done, and this is going to be fun.
I'm going to pass it on to the first group, and you have there's a few little agendas around if you want. I just want to warn you that I think it's probably going to go past 2:30. The calculations that I made were not exactly correct. And please turn off your cell phones. So welcome Team 3.
Team 3, and I'm Brianna, for those of you that don't know me. And
I'm David, for those of you who don't know me.
And I'm Janelle. Our other team member, Stephanie, is unfortunately unable to join us today, but we wanted to give her credit for the presentation as well. So our presentation today is changing the way we think about surveillance. So we ask you to keep that in mind as you're watching the presentation.
It's already here, and the problem is it's not going to go away. You can be as private as you want within the four walls of your home. You walk outside, and you are no longer private. We trade some of our liberty, and in return, we get more security. I mean, we know that satellites can take a picture. If I just look up, I'm sure there's a satellite that can take my picture. So we know that. We know that that's technically possible. What I worry about are the unknown unknowns, the things that we don't know, but that are being done in our name. Surveillance has become increasingly informational and not ocular. You know, big data, things you buy, you get on a plane. You can't help but leave small traces of your life everywhere. And increasingly, surveillance is interested in that stuff, not in your whole form and what you're doing as you're walking down the street. It's your behavioral choices, it's your preferences. Those are a gold mine. In an era of big data, in an era of analytics, that is a veritable gold mine, not only for the state, but also, and again, increasingly for retail firms, consumer culture in general, and for any resellers of personal data, Facebook being key.
I guess I have to turn this on. Redefining surveillance, what does that even mean? We need to rethink how we define it. So traditionally we think about surveillance as like being watched and visual, and the camera on the wall that's watching you and your whole form. And as David Black says in our video, it's not about that anymore. It's about the little pieces of data that you're leaving throughout your whole life, and what they do with that data and how valuable that data is, and they being lots of different forms: government, companies, businesses that want to make money off of you. So yeah, if you own any loyalty cards or anything like that, you're a part of the system.
Okay, so why is this important? It's important because we can't have an ethical conversation about surveillance unless we actually know what it means today. So put up your hand and keep up your hand if you have an Air Miles card. Okay, so not everybody. Put up your hand and keep up your hand if you have a loyalty card for a store. Okay, almost everybody. And put up your hand and keep up your hand if you have a credit card or a bank card. Okay, so everybody. Okay, so everybody here is involved in the new definition of surveillance today, so what this actually means. And really, essentially what it is it's tracking our behaviors, and everybody is involved.
Okay, so what we did is we created a website. So first of all, this website was built to just make it easy to navigate. So if you have any questions about information on surveillance, you can definitely go on there and watch our video again. I'm sure you guys liked it. Janelle played a great role. Our second tab is, this tab contains an essay on ethical concerns with surveillance. So I'm sure you guys will want to read this whole thing. Yeah, that was actually sarcasm. Yeah. But if you guys are interested, it's going to be on the second tab. Our third tab is going to be containing information on the few theorists right now that are working on surveillance. And our last and final tab contains additional footages. One that I found interesting was why Canadians are worried about surveillance and online surveillance bills. So there you go.
Just one more slide. If you want to follow us, we do have a Twitter page. It's at Surveillance321, and we're also on Facebook at Redefining Surveillance in Canada. If you want to add us, we'll definitely be posting lots. Actually, probably only for one more day. And also, our link is right there as well if you feel like going and looking at any of that stuff. So, thank you. Questions. Okay. And does anyone have any questions? Comments, concerns? No. Awesome. Great. Thank you.
David, I just want to acknowledge David Black, whose voice you heard in the video. Yomo.
We signed you up already, Japanese. That's good.
Okay, so we're the Yomo promo team. Yomo as in you only Mars once. This is Matt over here over there, Ashley, Thomas, Aubrey, and myself, Christine. So the Mars One Foundation is a nonprofit organization led by a Dutch entrepreneur named Baes Lansdorp. The goal of the Mars One Foundation is to begin a human settlement on Mars by the year 2013. The mission is intended to be funded through a televised reality TV show that will broadcast every aspect of the mission, from the selection of the astronauts, the training and preparation, and the 7th-month mission to Mars. The show will continue to broadcast the lives of the Mars inhabitants from their arrival to the end of their lives. The opportunity to travel to Mars is a one-way ticket only. Currently, there have been over 80,000 applications for the Mars settlement from countries all over the world. The Mars One Foundation will select 2 men and 2 women from the one-way ticket to Mars mission, and will continue to send a new group of astronauts every 2 years afterwards. Again, this selection process will be a part of the reality TV show and involve the public in the process as well. The flight to Mars is expected to take 7 to 8 months in a very confined space. The astronauts will only have access to no shower and will eat only freeze-dried and canned food. The vision of the Mars One believes, quote, human exploration of the solar system should be a global effort, then the ambition of an individual nation. Okay, Thomas.
Thanks, Christine. So, as many of you probably know, Mars is the Roman god of war, and that was adopted from the Greek word Ares. And in Mars's entourage was Phobos and Deimos, which are the 2 moons circling Mars. And those stand for fear and dread, respectively. So with that ominous tone, we talk about the risks and challenges. There's too many to count, so we reduced them to 3. The first is radiation, and there is going to be incredible amounts of radiation, both in transit and when the astronauts get to Mars. They are kind of kindly known as galactic cosmic rays, which sounds something like you'd see at Shambhala or something. But what they actually represent are proton storms from coronal mass ejections of the sun. Here on Earth, we are really well protected by an electromagnetic sphere, and you can see how the ejections play across the electromagnetic sphere in form of the aurora in the north and south poles. Up in space, they do not have this protection. And in fact, the astronauts can experience these proton storms by actually seeing the protons hit their optic tissues, and it just flashes in their eyes. Second to the actual effects it has on the biological tissue, it can cause electromagnetic surges in the operational equipment itself, which, because everything is going to be necessary, we don't want any undue weight on this mission. Any small glitch could bring down the mission. It was compared to having a CAT scan every 5 days. When on Mars, these people will also need to hide whenever there is a coronal mass ejection. So there will be bunkers throughout. And while this causes undue amount of aging, what we're not sure is how this will affect the breeding program that this colony is eventually going to adopt. Operationally, Mars is going to be 250 million miles away from Earth at its furthest point, and that's the other side of the sun. That means it'll take 40 minutes to communicate with the friends and family back home, if they're even watching. It's tough to tell. This is going to be a corporate effort. There's going to be very minimal government oversight. This has never been done before. And with that in mind, without this precedent, their projection of $6 billion operating budget is absurdly surreal. They just don't know, but that is what they've projected. This has never been proven on Earth. There's been no autonomous habitats ever developed here. So to say that we could do this off-planet without recourse to just leaving is quite absurd as well. Because this is a very hostile environment. The temperature ranges from 130 degrees below zero to about 30. And while that sounds like it could be copable, this is in a very thin atmosphere. At ground level, it is equivalent to being 36 kilometers above the planet. So if you step outside, the oxygen in your blood will instantly bubble out, and you will fizz to death, like celebratory champagne. Finally, they're not sure if there's any water on Mars. While there are massive ice caps on both the north and south poles, they're not sure if that's actually water. It could just be frozen carbon dioxide or dry ice. These are just some of the myriad reasons why this is a dangerous mission. And I'll pass you over to Ashley. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. In case anyone's wondering, this is actually real. We didn't make any of this up, so I can tell by the look on some faces of disbelief. So on the Mars One page, they do have a specific page called Is It Ethical? And they emphasize a number of issues to explain why it is ethical to undergo such a mission. So their first point is it ethical to send humans to Mars on a one-way voyage? They conclude by saying that one day in the future, there will be enough people and enough equipment on the planet to build a machine to come back. So in that respect, they say it is ethical because one day people will be able to fly back. The next point is they will try to make the journey as safe as possible for the travelers. Also, the people will be going because they choose to go, and they're going to be fully informed and will be able to drop out at any time, even up to the last minute. And finally, Mars One says that they will give the people as high a quality of life as possible. So this includes unlimited access to email and communication channels, to keep in touch with their families and friends, have as many exploration opportunities as possible, and also the means to develop as much as they can themselves and to use the new rooms as they wish. Which sounds kind of odd. But it's up to them, really, because there's nobody else there. So, on the same page, they also make note that thousands of Europeans did the same thing when they moved to the New World, like such as Australia, for example, never to return to their homelands. So knowing all of this information, Mars One thinks that it is actually ethically conscientious to send people to Mars. Now I'm going to pass you over to Aubrey.
So, is it ethical to send people to Mars? Since the people they're sending actually can't come back and they don't have the technology to bring them back. The other issue is that there's no privacy. These people will be under 24-hour surveillance, 7 days a week. And that the reality TV show is actually what's funding them to get there. And it is potentially actually the only reason why they're doing this is to make money. One of the guys that is doing this, Baz, he actually did admit that in an interview, that he's doing this for money, and he's doing it because he has the dream to go to Mars. But he's not going. He just wants to send other people there. So the other issue is that what happens if the funding disappears? What if people stop watching the reality TV show because they're not interested in watching people be bored out of their mind on another planet? There's no fallback for that. So what ethical responsibility does Mars One have to these people? Well, actually, what they've said is that we're going to inform them of the risks, which they haven't actually been honest about, and then they will be left to their own vices. So whatever they do is on them. So they claim no ethical responsibility for whatever happens to the people that they are sending to Mars. There's also no proof that humans can actually live on Mars, and considering the conditions that Thomas laid out, it seems fairly unlikely. All the equipment that they are going to use is experimental. They haven't actually even begun testing any of it, and they plan to do this in about 10 years. There will be no governance, no laws, no rules on Mars. They will live in small pods, and they will actually have to still wear space suits. So considering all this, they're actually kind of planning to send humans to be somewhere where it would be very hard to be human in. Now we are going to show you our video, which is the Yomo promo.
Mars. Barren. Lifeless. Dusty. Red. No human has ever been to or lived on Mars. The search began to find the right people for a momentous journey.
Anybody who's ever seen anything about space just wants to be there. Like, why wouldn't you want to live on Mars?
Mars seems pretty nifty. I'm lucky to be one of the first people to go there, but I hope to be the first to die.
People might say you're not living in reality, but what is reality really?
My life is all about 4 things. Party, you got dance, you got chill, you got chill.
2 men and 2 women who will live out their lives on the red planet, never to return to Earth. After 7 years of training,
I've been training the Yomo crew for the last 7 years. We do 5 hours of physical training every day. I have them up at 7 a.m. We do technical training, mental tests. I can't express how excited I am to be a part of this project.
90 days of isolation and a 7-month voyage, the intrepid Earthlings have survived on a diet of dehydrated food and non-denominational hazelnut spread.
Where's the 4th spoon? We don't have a 4th spoon?
No.
I can't join in here?
We only have 3 of
I put it in the airlock.
Living in a simulated gravity wet wipe extravaganza and needlessly consuming large amounts of algae.
Oh.
You will watch them laugh until they scream. Scream until they're bored.
31 bottles of beer on the wall.
And be bored until they are even more bored.
Does anyone know how to play Jocasta?
They're trashy hookups.
I asked Dax out on a date, and she was like, nah, I'm in a long distance relationship.
I just want to say hi to my boyfriend. I know we can make it.
The pointless drama.
I think Serenity finished my Nutella. I will recycle her in the algae vats if so.
I am just so sick of all of their faces.
The hilarious despair.
Can everybody just freaking remember to do their space chores? I mean, I'm up here all day just sweeping with my this and nobody else is cleaning up anything else.
And they'll fight.
I really hate you.
A lot.
Yo, so Tom's getting so pissed about people eating his Nutella. If he thinks he can fight me, whatever, man. I got karate skills.
The most watched television event in history with over 2.4 billion viewers. Watch as the permanent inhabitants of Mars travel to their new home. Yomo.
Where are we right now? You know, like in dimensions of space and time. Like, where are we? Like, did we leave time? You know, is like time different?
I think we're getting younger.
Oh.
The universe started 3 seconds ago.
What?
So now I'd like to ask you, seeing what you've seen today, do you believe that Mars One should proceed? Can we see a show of hands? Who is in favor of Mars One?
Okay. Not very many.
And who is not?
Seems like a bit of a waste of money. Money could be spent better. Who would want to go on this voyage? Really?
Even if
Japanese fans.
even if you know Japanese going, Vance?
I think it's more ethical than sending a dog out to die all by itself. And, you know, if people are idiotic enough to want to go,
Let 'em.
I wouldn't feel as bad about them perishing out there as I would some poor thing who did not have a choice.
Any questions or comments?
Have any of you applied?
Have they done any, you say that we've never had an autonomous living unit on Earth. Have they considered trying that through this program?
Through Mars One?
Have they considered doing that?
I believe they have. That's why they're doing trial runs with the isolation habitats. I'm not sure where they do it, if they actually go to Antarctica or something. But even then, that's psychological testing as much as equipment testing. I was just thinking of the biodome that they had to give up on after, I don't think they even made it a year. It was like as conditioned as they could possibly make it, and it just didn't work.
Okay, thank you.
Do you guys think this is actually going to happen?
Like it's not a hoax?
Well, no, I think that they probably do intend to do this. Do you think it's actually going to come to fruition? Do you think it is?
Or are they just doing it for the viewership to make all the money and then just kind of cancel the last?
Currently, they've raised, how much was it?
It's like 65,000.
Yeah, through Kickstarter campaigns and merchandise. They've
I
only,
think it's 2.8 million in applications and 84,000 in donations.
right.
Yeah, they get $35 per application, and there's been about 80,000.
So they're about 5,997,000,000.
But they're selling mugs and T-shirts on the website, so.
There you go. Yes, ma'am.
I'm just wondering about the criteria and how you picked this topic. I think it's a great topic, but I'm just wondering how you got to create it.
This CBC had started interviewing. I think there was an interview with Baz Lansdorp himself. It had just started drumming. It just had popped up on the scene, and it just was an appropriate moment, I think, for us. And because we were tossing around ideas, and when this came up, we just were floored, and we just sat there for hours trying to wrap our heads around it, and we've yet to actually see what this is.
Michael?
Well, this would not be ethical, but I would love it if we could nominate and vote for people to send on this one. Don Cherry, I don't know.
That would
would be 24-hour dog cherry channel.
Of the 40 contestants that they choose that go through 4 things of processes of selection, the voters get to, like the viewers get to vote on those 40. 4 of those 40.
Oscar music.
Thank you.
Next up is Generation Debt. Maybe while you guys are just making sure you have everything going correctly over there, I would like to introduce someone who all the students love. Rob Newell, can you please stand up? Rob helps everybody do lots and lots of things, and especially, I would say, you guys, hey? Yeah. So are you guys ready to go? Okay. Thank you to Rob, and I'll say more about Rob and Dan and Dave later. There you go.
Thank you. Actually, we're not going to.
Okay.
All right, hello everybody. For those of you who don't know us, I'm Kimberly. This is Kirsten, Noah, and over there, our little tech girl is Lindsay. So we are Generation Debt, and Generation Debt is a campaign that highlights the lack of financial education that is prominent amongst young adults today by taking a look at the debt of young adults and what they are likely to take on. It is issues within the financial system and just how different today's world is for our generation compared to the generations previous to us. Basic financial education is notably absent in the education system, and thus children are taught to spend and not to save. Generation Debt is found on the web and throughout social media, giving young adults access to resources and offers resources to help them educate themselves while highlighting the ethical issues of money creation, student debt, and how young adults are thrust into a financial system they have not been adequately prepared to handle. We chose this as our campaign because we believe that the lack of financial education that young adults exhibit today will have a large impact on society and the future as a whole. We aim to reverse the trends of overspending and undersaving by giving young adults a chance at handling debt so that they can have a better shot at owning a home and saving for retirement. So yeah, we are a website and we are throughout social media. And we chose Facebook and Twitter to reach our target audience of 18 to 35-year-olds. And again, throughout Facebook and Twitter, we are posting resources and articles that can be shared for real-time question and answers with our followers.
Okay, so financial education. I'm sure you can all relate to this scenario. You turn 18, you become an adult, and you're expected to act like one. And this includes using bank and financial functions that you likely don't have any experience with. I learned this myself when I needed to fund my education and I was unsure where to turn. Do I qualify for a student loan? Do I qualify for a line of credit? And what do these loans really mean for my financial future was all really unknown to me. Useful financial education is not taught in schools. Career prep programs are now quite prevalent, and math classes try and incorporate real-life learning into the curriculum, but high school grads still fall short knowledge-wise when it comes to borrowing money, budgeting their funds, and even paying taxes. So the site features how-to videos and resources in an effort to bridge this financial gap. Our aim is for the page to be a one-stop shop for young adults who want to establish and practice healthy financial habits and increase their financial knowledge on a whole. So, as my video will show, we went out and interviewed some young adults to see if it was just me or if financial education is really lacking as much as we thought.
I struggled through it on my own.
Ongoing lifelong journey.
I go to H&R Block.
From the tax forms themselves.
I don't know how to do my taxes.
Okay.
had a credit card at a pretty young age just because I did a lot of traveling, but...
I've got a credit card. They just gave me one of those when I was 18. A rite of passage, almost.
My dad threw the hydro bill on the table in front of me, and he said, if you don't turn off all the lights and like take shorter showers, we're not going to be able to go on vacation.
My parents taught me to budget at a really young age. I had a paper route. It was my first job when I was probably 10 years old. And they made me save half of everything that I earned, and that, you know, would take me that much longer to budget to buy the things that I wanted compared to all my friends.
Budgeting, probably through my father. He's a pretty smart budgeting guy. I don't really follow a budget that hard. Right now, I wish I did better. It would help a lot.
We have a program in grade 12 called Career and Life Management, and yeah, it was terrible. It was like miserable.
You don't learn any of that.
No, it was very poorly taught, but at the end of the day, I didn't feel like they met my needs for giving me like real skills.
I kind of feel like it's a more or less reasonable trade-off. It's kind of sucks to have debt, but it's kind of the reality of living in the year 2013, unless you have some sort of sweet situation, which I don't.
Thanks, Kirsten. So for those of you that have a bachelor's degree, you've probably been in school for about 17 years. And now being in school, main reason you're in school is because you want to find the right job. And a main reason for finding a job is so that you can make money. But in these 17 years that you spend in the education system, did they ever teach you where money comes from? Probably not. So we decided we'd go hit the streets of Victoria and ask people the question, how is money created? So let's roll the video.
How is money created? It has something to do with gold and worth of gold, and I don't really know.
Can I pass? Because I have no idea.
What do you mean, like the actual bills or the... I believe money is printed, maybe at a very secure location in Ottawa, perhaps.
From trees.
From a natural resource.
Is it perceived value of things?
I would agree with this guy. Yeah, perceived value.
Like there's a guy at a bank who, or that guy at a World Bank. I don't really understand economics. I don't really think money really is anything in particular.
To answer the question, how is money created, we have to look at banks. There are two kinds of banks, central banks and commercial banks. A country's central bank lends money to the government and commercial banks. Commercial banks such as TD, Scotiabank, or the Royal Bank lend money to businesses and individuals. So how do they create money? The answer, borrowing. When you go to the bank and take out a loan, the bank types some numbers into your account and money is created. Sound crazy? That's because it is. In other words, money is debt. If we paid off all our loans, we would have no money. Should banks be able to create money from nothing and then charge interest on that money?
Perfect. So banks create money from nothing. So that's kind of an interesting statement. Should banks be able to create money from nothing and then charge interest on that money? So, for example, if you or I had to start our own counterfeiting business, the government would be like, you know what, that's not okay. But if banks do it, all of a sudden it's like, okay, this is okay. And what's really interesting about our current system is that actually can't get out of debt as a society, as a country, because our money is debt. So if we were to try to pay off all our debt, we'd actually destroy all our money. So what does this mean for the next generation? It actually means that under our current system, they're stuck with debt no matter what. Actually, the debt has to increase. So that begs the question, what kind of system are we passing down to our children? Do we want to leave them with a legacy where they're trapped in debt forever?
So, generations X, Y, and the millennials are facing a different world than the one that their parents were brought up in. Young adults pay higher education costs. They have loads of debt on credit cards, car loans, and lines of credit, while making starting wages that are often lower, or they're often too low to cover basic living expenses. It is no wonder that owning a home or planning for retirement can often seem like a distant dream. So to investigate the situation that young adults are facing today, Generation Debt took to the streets to find out or find different perspectives on what is going on with our generation. And here are some opinions of what people had to say.
Inflation, obviously everything is different from when our parents were growing up, but also they were baby boomers, right? So they were raised by the save everything. Like I remember going to my Grammy's house and there'd be like little nubs of pencils. Like you did not throw that out because that was a pencil. It could be used. And that kind of throwawayness is really what we've taken on. Well, yeah, but I can buy a new one, right? So I think that we have a different mentality of, I think that we are much different in terms of what we're taking on and not really recognizing what we're taking on.
Our mortgages, for young people now are a lot more, just because houses are a lot more expensive. So even though the rates are lower, the balance that you're paying interest on is so much higher. So how that's going to affect us in retirement, I'm not saving as much, right? I'm spending a lot more on my mortgage payments. And so will I be able to retire at 55 or 65? Or, will I want to, I guess is the other question. Maybe I'll want to keep working until I'm 100.
Today, if you don't have, at least in Greater Victoria, probably $70,000 to $100,000 to put down and then carry somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000, seems pretty tough to do to me. I don't think it's going to happen that often. You're going to need, like my son, you need some help, so that's what we did.
Banks are not willing to give out huge financial loans, especially for refinancing of mortgages and stuff like that, unless you have huge security backing you. In that sense, you probably won't even need the loan. So for our future generation, those aren't attainable. Unless you have some, venture capitalist investing in you or something like that, you're probably not going to achieve those loans through the banks, guaranteed. So for future, I'd say save. Plan yourself and save.
All right, so I looked at student debt. So banks capitalize on student debt and offer students large lines of credit each year. The line of credit differs from a government loan as it allows students to withdraw money as needed. Yet the majority of the money that we need starts at the beginning of the year. We have to pay for tuition, we have to pay for books, we have to pay our damage deposit, we might even need a new bed. I know I needed one. With the bank loans, the interest only accumulates on what is being withdrawn, so you only have to pay on what you've used, and which can add up really fast, especially if you're moving from one province to another. And the bank loans require students to start paying the line of credit right away, unlike the government loans. And like how Noah had mentioned, banks make money out of nothing. So is it ethical for banks to charge students who have no money interest when they're actually making money off of us in the long run? So this video that I have kind of just talks about student debt a little bit more in depth.
I have borrowed a lot of money from the banks, yes.
I've had to borrow money from a bank to pay for school on more than one occasion.
My parents took out loans under their name first, and then about junior and sophomore year in college, I had to put loans under my own name.
Banks offer students up to $12,000 per year. The total line of credit can reach as high as $48,000, and that's without the interest.
Don't really have a set plan. I'm just hoping to make it go away sometime soon so that I'm not stuck with it forever.
Originally I had a plan. Originally I was going to go into sort of medicine, so it was going to be easier to pay back in the end, but plans changed during university, so now not so much. Kind of going to take care of that when it comes to that.
To pay back the 4-year student loan in 5 years, you would need to hand over to the bank $1,000 each month. With interest over the 4 years of school and 5 years of repayment, the $48,000 loan has grown to $57,680. Is it right for banks to make money out of nothing and charge students ridiculous rates on their student lines of credit?
So now let's just talk quickly about our resources section on the website. So highly recommend you check this out if you want to learn more about finances, what's going on. And we have got a few tabs here. This is the documentary tab. So if you want to watch a documentary on student debt, college, or the banking system, you can totally feel free to do that. If we go up to the tabs again, we got another tab which is presentations. So if you want to watch some presentations, the first presentation on here is by Peter Schiff. He actually called the housing bubble in 2008. Over 2 years before it happened. So there's a few presentations there, even one by yours truly at the bottom somewhere. And also there's a bunch of short videos you can watch if your attention span is a little bit lower. And also we have some websites. Highly recommend you check this out. This website we're going to take you to now is Canada's federal debt. So only $614 billion, your personal share, which is $17,500. So you can add that on top of all your student debts. So it's kind of like, whoa. But anyway, the main kind of focus of our campaign is really to address the lack of financial awareness in society. Because we're taught to spend, we're not taught to save, we're not taught to invest. And really, even when we go to school, we're taught like math and science, all these good things, but we're not taught like how to do our taxes, something basic like that. And the message that this is sending to the next generation is that, finance, personal finance is something you should figure out on your own. It's not something we really want to address. And, is it ethical that we can go through a schooling system for 17 years and not know where money comes from, not know how to do our taxes, not know how to invest. So, we're really setting up the next generation to be taken advantage of by a lot of these banking institutions that, create, money out of debt from nothing to people and then charge you a bunch of interest on that, and then we get stuck with all these interest payments. So really, we have a really clear choice going forward. Number one, we can either say, you know what, this is too complicated, I don't really understand, it's not my thing, and I'm just going to step back and pass the buck to the next generation. Or we can say, you know what, actually I want to learn, I'm open to learning, and I want to understand what's going on. And if that's you, highly recommend, go to our website, check out the resource section. Now that we're done the program, you got some time to chill back, watch some documentaries, so highly recommend you do that. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's our presentation. Thank you so much for your attention.
Long on time, so we have time for one audience question, if there is an audience question. Does anyone have a question? Yes?
What can we do about it?
Yeah, well, the best thing is to educate yourself, right? Like, that's the number one thing, right? Because unless you understand what the problem is, you're not going to know what to do. So the best thing is really just, check out some of the resources on the website if you can. And the website is taught2spend.wordpress.com.
We found, just a lack of knowledge was the main problem. I think if people knew a little bit better about how the system worked and how to use it, it would eliminate a lot of these problems.
But there's no advocating for change. You're basically saying, learn how the system works, but you're not challenging people to cause change.
There is a resource that's there that actually advocates for alternative currencies and kind of an opt-out of the system. So we do kind of provide those resources on the page for people who do want to have more of an advocating role. But it's, I know what you mean. The system's kind of established. I think kind of the best approach moving forward is just kind of to learn the most you can about it and adapt. And I think that's kind of the recipe for financial success.
Congratulations on an excellent presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can you just briefly kind of bring to the foreground how ethics plays a role in what you're presenting to us today? Why, what aspects of this imply ethics?
So there's a couple of different things. So the lack of financial education in schools we saw as an ethical issue, and just the money creation aspect of the way banks operate and interest, and also student, it's the lack of education, and then the system itself is kind of what we're talking about.
Third one to that is the banks making money off student.
Right.
And the generational imbalance and a variety of things, yes. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
There you go. It would be better if you use the mic so that they can hear on the live screen.
Hi everyone, we are team number 1. I'm Candace. I'll introduce everybody else. This is Max, Amanda, Adam, and Evan. And I'll pass this over to Evan.
Thank you, Candace. So we're just going to start with a couple questions to our presentation, and just by show of hands is probably the best way to do it. How many people here have ever owned or currently are in possession of, whether you own it or not, a pet? That's a good turnout.
How many of those people own dogs or owned a dog at some point?
How many of those people like their dog more than some of their friends?
And how many of those people would do anything for their dog?
Okay, so I'm going to ask everyone a rhetorical question right now. If you saw a homeless person on the street with a dog, what is the first thing that you think about? We're now going to go into a documentary that our team journeyed on to sort of try to answer that question, and here's what we came up with. This is called Dog Days.
Life on the street. That's not the right one.
I became homeless about 1.5 years ago and been living on the streets ever since, me and my dog. Well, definitely if I didn't have this dog, I would be in jail. He pretty much keeps me on the straight and narrow because he's really the only thing I care about, and I won't lose him for anything. So as long as I got him, he keeps me flying straight.
I think sometimes your gut reaction is first is, if you can't look after yourself, how do you look after a pet? And then I think when you step back, you often think this is something for them to love, something that gives unconditional love back. And so I understand the desire to have a pet.
Can somebody living outdoors care properly for a pet? Possibly. So really, it's not about judging the person. It's about seeing if they can provide for that animal what they need and what, if they're able to actually care for them.
You can feed yourself. I can feed myself. My dog can't feed himself. So that's why with my life, my dog is first. I've gone hungry to feed my dog. He's first, then me. Like, it's just the way it is. Because really, this is the only family we got, right here. I'm not gonna let my family starve.
I always find that the nicest dogs you ever see are homeless people dogs. If you want to see a dog that, we walk down the street and it's busy, there's like trucks and cars and hundreds of people walking by and the dog is just laying there. You go to any suburb, upper like middle class suburb, and you walk down the street and all you hear is dogs barking because they're not even trained enough to be quiet in their own home. I'm singing
Yeah, I've gotten jumped a couple times. He gets in there and like at night he just growls and shows his teeth and nobody can get near me, eh? So yeah, he does his share. My dog will never cheat on me, stab me in the back or nothing. I'll always be there for me.
I think everybody has preconceptions about everything. I mean, we judge, it's innate. Everybody judges. They look at somebody and you always have a first impression whether you stay with that or not.
As communities, we have to educate more people and look at trying to help people rather than assuming that they can't take care of their pet.
I don't know, every day is a blessing with my dog. I love my dog. I love my dog so much.
To the sweet young girl with feathered hair. Well, I tried so hard to get close to you, to the ghost that I've known from so long ago. I tried so hard to hold on.
So you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to, but if you want to put up your hand, you can. But did your first impression from the question that Candace asked, did it change at all from then until watching this video until now? I know for the 5 of us, we kind of came into this story with the initial response that the lady in the film says, which is, if you can't take care of yourself, how can you take care of an animal? And through this journey, we really realized through Jay and through the lady Kim Monteith at the SPCA that it's not something that you can just judge. It's a case-by-case thing. This dog was so incredibly well cared for, and her experience was that a lot of people phone and say this person's on the street, they have a dog, and unless something is really wrong with the situation, they'll go check it out, but usually that dog is 100% okay, and the dog stays. And she even said, somebody living on the street could possibly take great care of an animal, and this guy did. So it definitely changed our perspectives, and we learned a lot. So if there are any questions, we'd be happy to answer if any popped into your mind, or comments on anything. Yeah?
I just think that, especially seeing this, it's in some senses almost more fair for a dog to live like that, because we talked about how you can't even take care of a dog in your own house. It's yapping, it's not trained. That dog's not living up to its potential, living in a suburban home with no attention, but you can see the bond between them. That was really beautiful, guys, really beautiful.
And something that we also came across was that, these dogs are with their owners 24/7, and sometimes if you have a dog, you have to leave it in a crate for either your whole workday or part of your workday. So we also did a lot of reaching out to other places that just didn't get back to us, but there's also so many resources that you don't know about, like free clinics for the dogs to go, and vets that are really helpful and say things like that. This dog's with their owner for 24/7 and yours is at home while you're at work. So it's definitely this case-by-case thing that you need to not make blanket judgments. Yeah.
When you ask the question, what's your first thought when you see a person with a dog on the street? My first thought is, where's 10 or 20 bucks that I can give this person? And I wonder, for me, when a person is a homeless person on the street and they have an animal with them, there's somehow a window, a door to have a connection and a conversation about something other than poverty or we talk about our dogs, and it's easy for me to give more money, actually, to some, because I want to make sure that both those people have a meal that night, and we've had a human conversation instead of a charitable middle-class person, tolerating and giving a few cents to somebody she doesn't really want to have a conversation with. Did Jay talk about that at all?
He did mention, does anybody else want to answer? Shall I keep going? He did mention that usually when he has the dog, people approach him more often and are more generous. But and he's a really attractive dog. Like, that helps too. But yeah, he does do a little better off. But there's still lots of stuff that trips him up having your dog. Like, he can't stay in a shelter, so then he does need to spend the time on the street, sort of panhandling, I guess you could call it, because they really can't stay anywhere. So.
Can you talk in the mic so that people online can hear you?
Is it on? Oh, it is on. Okay, I didn't know.
Sorry, what does he do in winter?
Well, he's been in Victoria only for like the past year and a half, so he's sort of been lucky, I guess you could say, because we haven't had a really snowy winter. But there are shelters in Victoria that will allow you to go in with pets, but it's only in extreme conditions, and they have very set temperature ranges that's in. And then he did speak that he has gone to, there's one shelter in Victoria that will allow pets, but the pets are on a different floor in a crate, and he was asked to leave because his dog wouldn't stop barking for him, which you would understand if the dog is with you 24/7, and then all of a sudden it can't sleep with you, it can't see you, it can't smell you. Of course the dog is going to get a little scared kind of thing. So that was something that also the lady at the SPCA talked about, like the way that we can start moving forward and helping is to make sure, you know, that we're not judging, and that if there are shelters that aren't willing to let animals in, then we need to figure out why and how can we help them. Is it a cleanliness issue? Is it they're worried that the dog won't behave issue, or anything like that? So we need to be more accommodating and be more open to that conversation. Yeah, Kirsten.
Have you shown the documentary to Jay, or do you plan to?
Yeah, he really, I think, touched the group quite a bit. When we met him, it was really shocking getting to hear his story. So my personal project is I'm going to tell his story. With that being said, I plan to show this documentary as well as his story. And where it goes from there will be interesting. But I wanted to give his story a voice because just to give you an idea of his life, he used to be, I forget what was his job?
He's a scaffolder.
Yeah, union carpenter in Fort McMurray, and he got severely sick. And when it came down to it, he had to go homeless essentially, and he lost a lot of friends and family, and so he is on the street, not necessarily by choice. And the good news is he is coming out of it, so he's banked some money, and he's gonna eventually be able to get subsidy and get his own place. But one thing he did say is we're, whether or not we know it, we're each a paycheck away from homelessness, which was, you know, interesting to hear about. Yeah.
I keep thinking about when you guys were planning this, and your idea of, well, it'd be great if we could get somebody who is homeless and has a dog. And I could not imagine that you'd find such a perfect case as that. I mean, Buddy is irresistible, glorious little dog, and it makes the show a kind of a love story.
It absolutely is.
It's really nice.
Should we speak to that? Yeah, it was pretty, it's funny, that story of how because we knew it was either like we found the guy or we didn't. And so we were pretty much scouring the streets of downtown Victoria, and started in a gas station. And I just told the guy what I was doing, and he's like, oh yeah, I know Wolverine and Wolf, they hang out around there, so go check that place out. So we're scouring for Wolverine and Wolf, didn't run into them. And then Max and I chatted with some police officers because we thought they'd know, maybe, you know, having to move them or whatever. And and then a friend of mine told me go to RBC. He's usually sitting outside of there. So we stood there, didn't see him, broke up again, searched the streets, and then Amanda and Adam were driving by and they're like, he's there. So I went and approached him, and it was, immediately we were like, okay, we've got something. So, yeah.
Was he reluctant to be on camera at all, or?
No, he's done some work with CTV and another radio or news. He's been interviewed before.
Oscar music.
So yeah.
See what I mean about it would be nice to have more time and sit with all of these more, like really sit with them all. So what I would like to propose now is I have a few of the individual presentations, a few of the individual projects that I want to play. And I want to kind of also just offer this as a time if people need to take a break. And so I know that's not ideal, but I'm looking at the clock and thinking, like, if you need a break, take it now while these are on, or please stay and watch them. And then after they're done, there's going to be 6 of them, I believe. It'll take about 10 minutes or so, and then we'll move on to the next presentations. Sound good? Okay, I'm going to put these on while you guys take your break if you need to.
We know the feeling of defeat, but more importantly, the taste of victory. We've had broken bones, sprained ankles, torn flesh, and have been concussed. But we see the world a little differently. Where others see pain, we find motivation to pick ourselves back up and try again and again and again. Where others might not see much, but we see opportunity. And while some might view us as kids who never quite grew up and got real jobs, by the streets. We know the feeling of concrete on a hot day and the sting of sweat in our cuts. We know the feeling of defeat, but more importantly, the taste of victory. We've had broken bones, sprained ankles, torn flesh, and have been concussed. But we see the world a little differently. Where others see pain, we find motivation to pick ourselves back up and try again and again and again. Where others might not see much, but we see opportunity. And while some might view us as kids who never quite grew up and got real jobs, we just laugh and carry on. Because most people spend their entire lives figuring out who they are. We've known since puberty. See, we might have grown up with a toy, but we'll grow old with a passion. And while there's no telling where life might take us or where we'll end up, we don't forget who we are, and we most certainly don't forget where we came from. We were raised by these streets.
certainly look at it as a chore, or you can look at it as a reason for getting up in the morning. It's a good day when I can go out and see the cows and, you know, check on them and see what's going on. So walk through the fields. And so as long as it's that reason for getting up in the morning and that you look forward to it, then I think then that's why you farm. Because you love the lifestyle.
The universe was created 3 seconds ago.
What?
It's true. I developed this app on my phone that lets you know the time frame of a universe's existence.
Okay.
See, the universe is made up of these little particles called spiral funkies.
Spiral funkies?
You don't know what spiral funkies are? It's only the basis of space and time. Don't you read Wikipedia?
If everything was created 3 seconds ago, why do I remember what happened this morning?
It's more like 45 seconds ago now. You, me, everything around us was created when the universe began, including your memories.
What about this application? Didn't you create it? Why would the universe create an app just so that you could measure the length of its existence?
I don't know, but it's what I spent most of my hypothetical life working on. Also, did you know there is a universe full of ninjas? It's lasted a bit longer than ours.
When will the universe end?
In about 30 seconds.
For real? I felt like it just started. Can't we do anything about it?
Nope.
Oh. Well, that sucks. How will we know when it's ended?
When the words come up.
Words? Matt Vivine. Who's that guy?
There's not enough time to answer that question.
But you could have just said the answer with the time you used to tell me that.
Just don't think so hard.
Now there are no words. Hello? Thomas?
Today is a feel-good day.
Is that person looking at me? Oh my God, that person is doing that. I can't do that. Oh my God, did I just say that? Oh my God, you guys aren't even listening to me. I'm up here teaching and you're not even paying attention to what I'm saying. I did not instruct that.
You think that guy's gonna notice if I pick my wedgie?
Okay, index finger knuckles, pressing down, check.
That guy in front of me is really sweaty.
Extending through the elbows, check.
You want me to rest in downward facing dog?
Upper shoulders, externally rotating, check.
Is it wrong if I get aroused in a yoga class?
Spine long, hips lifting, check.
Wow, she is really hot.
Breathe, breathe, okay, relax, breathe.
100 kilometers between us and the vacuum of space.
Oh, hello there. I didn't see you. Welcome. Today we're going to talk about voicemail etiquette. More specifically, the do's and don'ts of voicemail etiquette. Let's get started, shall we?
We'll see what's going on. It's a possibility. Got like 2 keystones left, John. All right, we're going to pick those up.
Ensure that you speak clearly during the voicemail and do not offer the recipient free alcohol.
I don't know at this point what time it's 4. It's 4.
Do not place a telephone call at 4 a.m.
So I don't know what time it would be available at. I don't know if this machine is still going. Can you continue to talk to you, John?
It's a voicemail. The recipient can't hear you.
John, I don't know what time we got. It's like 3:30 now.
You can't go back in time. Time travel has not yet been invented.
It was excellent when you picked us up this afternoon. We had a good day today. It was good. We were out and about. Got too much sun.
It's not necessary to reenact your day-to-day events.
Probably should have had a little sunscreen on my nose, though. No, hang on. We're still good. We're still good. We're still good.
When someone tells you to hang up the phone, you should probably take their advice.
John, you still there? Like I said, probably should put some sunscreen on the nose.
Once again, the recipient cannot hear you.
We're on like, what is it, like Cloverdale?
It's really bad.
Cook and Cloverdale.
When giving directions, know your location.
We're gonna go hit the drive-thru, like I said. Breakfast, lunch, whatever you. I mean, whatever you get. If you want something, it would be on my dime. No big deal.
Checkmate. It's not necessary to offer free food.
Like it was breakfast, I'd be like, I would get the McMuffin. But if you could still get the burger, I'd be fine with burgers. Shh, you're yelling. You can phone me back. SCEEBESIMS. Steve Sims.
When spelling your own name, make sure you spell it correctly.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Oh, it's you again. Well, to be honest, the ending was half decent.
Break time's over. Send them in if you see anybody out there. You guys can come back ready up here. While they're getting ready to do their presentation, I just want to reiterate that there are people that aren't right here right now that help a great deal with these projects. And you guys know who they are. Dan Anton. And Dave Adams helped you guys a lot too when Dan was on holiday, and Rob Newell. So they are great, and we can give them a hand in absentia.
Excellent. Actually, we decided we don't want to use the microphone. We checked with the tech guys, and that's okay. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
And I guess you guys can wait till Michael comes back.
Oh, I guess we do need Michael, don't we?
Yeah. I haven't used it today, so I don't know. Do I just give it a try right now? Because not everyone's here yet.
Karaoke just for you.
If anyone wants a ride to the thing afterwards, just let me know.
I told him not to open the bar until 12:30.
What time is it?
The one and only. That is.
Have you seen Michael anymore?
Michael, sorry. Maybe he's in the bathroom.
Yeah, he watched it. He don't watch it anymore.
I enforce pretty strict dress code
In all of your endeavors.
Are you?
So we're just waiting on Michael because he's grading us for this. So.
If only we could do a dance solo.
Yeah.
Dan just turned those on, so I think
not to worry.
on for the live feed. Yeah, so, okay.
We're Team 7 and I'm Brenna. I'm Jenny.
I'm Corey.
I'm Blair.
20% of Canadians will experience a mental illness within their lifetimes.
90% of people with mental illness 90% of people who commit suicide have mental illness, and just under 10 people a day in Canada who have a diagnosable mental illness commit suicide.
62% of all news stories featuring someone with a mental illness implicates them with a violent crime. But in reality, people with mental illnesses are responsible for less than 5% of all violent offenses.
Of the people suffering with mental illness, only 1 in 4 people will receive the help that they deserve.
These facts are shocking, but what's worse is that a lot of people won't take them seriously because of the stigma associated with mental illness. This stigma has been described as both debilitating and a roadblock for those who are sick and those who have recovered. Stomp Out Stigma is a media awareness campaign that aims to draw attention to this stigma for the purpose of creating acceptance. It uses social media and its website to aggressively create dialogue about mental illness. Stomp Out Stigma views mental illness through an ethical standpoint, asking, how should we talk about mental illness, and do we need to reevaluate the current dialogue? Our research, real-life experience, and time spent in the field says yes.
If 20% of people are dealing with mental illness of all ages, gender, race, religion, culture, education, and income levels, then why do we continue alienating people with mental illness? So John Stuart Mill says the greatest good for the greatest number, but if we cast out the net, we'll see a fair share of people are dealing with this. So maybe it's time we reevaluate and gain new perspective on what mental illness is in our society and provide an even more solution-based approach to this issue. Stigma and discrimination can be the biggest barrier to recovery and healing. And some people dealing with this issue of diagnosis find that stigma is actually worse than the illness. So we draw from the theorist Martin Buber, Ethics of Dialogue. So to create a new dialogue, he provides a platform of communication, and he recognizes polarities of communication. So he recognizes subjectivities, and he recognizes absolutisms of these identifications, of these labels that we create. And it's diminishing to human relationships and community development. So in between, we can foster education and awareness and optimism, and that's what we propose to do in our campaign to create new dialogue. If we actually look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because Buber is a humanist and he's a forerunner of Maslow, the pyramid of hierarchy of needs, which you're probably familiar with, safety, loving, belonging, and self-esteem is like what people need. So if we take away self-esteem and we take away love and belonging, then maybe we're taking away like the fundamental needs that people actually need to heal. And safety, people, if they're not safe, then they're going to be more isolated and alienated.
So we wanted to find out how healthcare providers felt about stigma and mental illness. I interviewed Kim Barry, former Royal Roads Master's student and current Patient Services Manager for Vancouver Coastal Health's Psychiatric Department. Let's take a look.
The government is planning to make it tougher for mentally ill offenders to be released from custody.
Gun control, school security, and new mental health.
Keeping guns out of the hands of people with mental illness, it's a serious problem.
More psychologists are starting to look at the roots of mental illness, particularly in those who are young.
I'm Corey for Stomp Out Stigma. I spoke with Kim Barry, Patient Services Manager for the Psychiatric Department for Vancouver Coastal Health. Mental illness affects us all, but people still don't know how to address the issue, so they turn to the media and nightly news.
I think it's just demystifying it. I think when they report things with mental illness, it should be accurate, it should be matter of fact, the same way as they would report anything else.
What do you think of when you try to picture someone with a mental illness?
Stigma is just an insidious form of discrimination. It's kind of the discrimination of lowered expectations. So yeah, everyone needs to just understand that they've already spoken to, mixed with, and sat next to someone who has a mental illness, whether they realize it or not. So it's not a big leap.
You don't need to suffer in silence. There are online and in-person services available in your neighborhood. Together, we will stomp out stigma.
Media has been our main means of reaching the public and creating dialogue. With reviewing our success in the last 2 weeks, we were able to predict our numbers of what we expect in the next 3 months. And according to our notes, by October 2013, we would have 500 Facebook likes and 1,400 Twitter followers. This leaves us confident that our main method of interaction and communication will be successful. To ensure the goals of our organization are fulfilled, we have created a hypothetical events plan that will interact with all audiences. Our campaign will start locally, but has the ability to go national, as our events are not province-specific. Our event strategy will interact with all age groups, genders, religions, and ethnic backgrounds. We will work specifically with police, school groups, and an online audience. Due to time constraints, I will be only highlighting the top 3 events of the 10 that we created. Our first being an art contest that will target middle school and high school students, and it will create a promotional calendar that will also be used for fundraising purposes. Our business interviews and seminars are of benefit to all organizations, as reducing stigma and discrimination has material benefits. like reduction in staff truancy and turnover and increased productivity. We are currently working out agreements with 2 organizations to succeed at getting literature based around mental illness involved with the Canadian homeschool curriculum. The book Kissing Doorknobs, which is a personal story about a girl with obsessive compulsive disorder, will be the first book that we push forward, as this personal story gives an emotional and insightful, compassionate view on what that life is like. As you can tell, the theme of our events is to start at the roots of stigma and combat it through education, awareness, dialogue, and optimism.
So, one of the main points that we really want to stress throughout this presentation is 20%, 1 in 5 people will suffer from some form of mental illness in their lifetime. And to give that a little bit of perspective, we've actually put something under every 5th chair in here. And I'd like you now to just look underneath your seats, and if you have something there, open it up. Open it up and stand up, please.
Not the thing that's taped. Keep that a secret. That's in the other group.
Yeah, the t-shirt's there. So if you have a t-shirt, stand up.
Stand up if you have a t-shirt.
Please stand up if you have a shirt.
Now, I want you to ask yourselves, how does it feel to see someone you may know or love standing up right now? How does it feel to be standing up? 1 in 5 people will suffer from some form of mental illness in their lifetime. We've been giving you guys lots of stats, but this is the reality.
These numbers are really concrete, yet it was important for us to understand them in order to better comprehend the attached stigma. For this reason, we look at this issue through an ethical lens as well as through the eyes of professionals. But as someone who has personally been affected by mental illness, I used my own experience to humanize this issue. My goal has been to tell my story not only with positivity but with resilience, to show that those who seek help can do well in life. I also wanted to show that people are capable of love and compassion, and that if we work together, we can stomp out stigma.
I don't have a name. I mean, my name, it doesn't matter because I'm a statistic. Here's the thing. 1% of Canadians have bipolar disorder. 20% will experience a mental illness within their lifetimes. And sometimes it kind of feels like I'm just one crazy person mixed in with a whole bunch of so-called normal people. I guess growing up, I've always known that I'm sort of different. Well, that's an understatement. I mean, I experienced my first wave of depression around age 6 or 7. I have a mental illness, therefore I'm stigmatized. But I believe that it doesn't have to be like this. Honestly, I'm saddened by the negative dialogue that plagues those who are sick. These jokes work in stark contrast to incurable diseases that are ruining lives. So here's the formula that I propose. Education plus optimism equals the awareness that will end the stigma. People like me have had enough, so it's time to look at mental illness in a way that's actually conducive to change. And here's what I think. If I have affected at least just one person, then I have succeeded in my quest to better people's lives. My support network, which has literally kept me alive, is testament to the fact that there are good people who can create positive change through compassion, education, and optimism. It's the recipe for keeping people like me on Earth. They've shown me that I matter, because like you, I do have a name. It's Brenna, and I'm so much more than a statistic.
We'd just like to open up the floor for any questions or comments. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Appreciate it. Oh, absolutely.
I hear in this presentation that you're not ending this today, that this is continuing.
That is correct.
That's pretty unusual for a graduating BAPC student to want to be continuing your final capstone project afterwards. Can you tell me about why you chose to do that, or how that's going to happen?
It really hits close to home, as I'm sure the video showed. And to be honest, the type of experience that we were gaining from doing this type of campaign was something that we really felt like we could market and utilize in future interviews. And when you have the passion behind something, I think it really shows. So, thank you.
Love you.
Better if you use the mic. What do you guys think? Okay. Welcome to this group.
Okay, it might seem like a long time ago, but I'm going to ask all of you if you can think back to what you had for breakfast this morning. Or maybe you didn't even have breakfast. What kind of barriers, or did you face any barriers in eating your breakfast, in getting that food, that healthy, nutritious start to your morning? Maybe you didn't have any food in your cupboards because you haven't had time to buy groceries because you've all been working on these. Maybe you didn't have time to make yourself a nice cup of coffee because you're racing here. So you resorted to something like Tim Hortons or McDonald's coffee. Well, we are looking at how people cope with barriers to food. Locally grown food by small producers, we know that this is beneficial to us. We know that it creates relationships between farmers and consumers. We know that it keeps money in the local economy. And we know that the food is often more nutritious, it's fresher, it's better for us. Yet it seems like it is so hard to get that food. It takes time, it takes energy, it's just so much more work than going to the grocery store and grabbing something that's been shipped in from China. Why is that? Well, we talked to some local producers here on the island and asked them that question, thinking perhaps there's something specific to living on an island that's making it harder for us, more expensive. Maybe it's the transportation, the ferries. Maybe it's because we don't have very much land to grow our food. Well, funny thing was, what these producers said was actually not unique to the island, but it was a universal story that small producers everywhere are facing. So our project is a combination of a website, as Paige is showing you now, and a video. This project could not have been completed without all of these team members you see here in front of you today. So Paige created the website where we are hosting the video and also have further resources to more information and flesh out some of the ethical points as well. All of the footage was shot by Jason House on location, various beautiful places around the island. The video was edited and put together by Sarah Rankin. Fabulous job. And José LaFrance kept us on track with project management and kept cracking that whip on us to make sure that we were all on time. And I'm Rachel Penner, and I had the pleasure of interviewing these local producers and the benefit of getting to hear a lot of stories and ideas from them that unfortunately you folks won't get to see in the video because we had to keep it short and sweet. So without further ado, may I present Making It Local.
Three large companies run 95% of the wine business in British Columbia. Vincor, Peller Estates and Mission Hill. The three large companies make as difficult as they can. They monopolize the shelf space in VQA stores. I cannot compete on that level. I have no chance whatsoever. All I can be is a boutique winery producing high quality wine sold separately into another system, which is the private wine stores, cellar door, restaurants and hotels. And I learned a long time ago, don't sweat the things you can't change. Worry about what you can change. Now, I can't fight the VQA system. It's entrenched in government for some very, very strong political reasons. I cannot fight the big three organization who are making $400 million a year on selling in Canada wine into the BC market. I need to worry about the quality of my product, the unique nature of it, the loyalty of British Columbian residents who want to drink good BC wine.
Over the last 6 years, there's been tremendous changes in just the local way that animals are produced. You've probably heard about mad cow disease. The small slaughterhouses, which had never had any issues over the last 50 or 60 years that they've been in place, were compelled to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars to upgrade their facilities to just stay with the same kind of things that the large ones that are producing 5,000 animals a day. Whether you're doing 2 animals or 5,000, you had the same rules applied to you, and it made it very prohibitive for a lot of the slaughterhouses. In fact, slaughterhouses shut down because of that. It's easy from a regulatory perspective to have one type of regulation, and I can understand that. It's just a whole variety of things that add into the cost per product, which is a problem because I can't increase my cost. Increase my cost, people aren't going to buy. You have to be somewhat competitive to the local grocery stores. It costs me $5 to feed them a day. There'll be a point where it'll get to the, either we'll have to increase costs and hopefully the consumer market will appreciate the value.
Our customers certainly value local, but in the back of their minds, there's also, the reality of okay, well, this is what it costs in the grocery store. Why would I be paying more for local food? It's tough to wrap your head around the fact that something shipped in from far away could still be cheaper than something grown locally. And my whole thing is that, if you walk into the grocery store and think, wow, that's really cheap, you know for sure that corners have been cut somewhere. Labor conditions on farms in general, not only in the US, but everywhere I know of in the world, is pretty bad. It is interesting that we don't value our food enough to want to pay wages that we would expect our own children to earn. Growing food either is done on a very, very large scale with a high degree of mechanization, or it's incredibly labor intensive and it's hard physical work. And I don't think our culture values hard physical work. Our culture values work from the neck up. Most parents, when their kids are thinking about their career, their parents aren't like, well, have you considered farming? I think it's a great job. I think it's a great way to live. But only if we can pay people a living wage to do it.
Yeah.
So any questions?
Matt?
Is that on your website, that video?
Yeah, it's embedded on the homepage. It's islandmaine.wordpress.com. And there's lots of resources for growing your own food as a beginner, seeking out farmers markets so you can find these things locally, really close to home, and then also other resources around what the government does for food security, what our policy of food security is. You know, we're on an island, and how many days would it take for us to run out of food if the ferry stopped running, that sort of stuff. And different things to help you get involved if that's what you choose.
Yes, go ahead,
Can
Virginia.
you just tell us a couple of the ideas that people had for how to change things? You told us you wouldn't have time to go into that. There's another video for that. But was there one really good idea that you think was kind of doable? Or?
Well, I think for me, the one thing that stood out to me the most from all three of them was a very accepting attitude of this is the system and I can't change the system, so I'm going to work around it. I'm going to do my best outside of it, in a sense outside of it, to still be able to pursue my livelihood and hope that people will come along with me, right? Like the farmer is saying, hopefully people will appreciate the value if I have to raise my prices. The farmer's market lady saying the same thing. So it's kind of that they're doing things differently and hoping people will join them. Definitely in some ways, for sure, but it's not a mass movement, no.
Through our research, what I noticed is, particularly most of us come from the prairies, all of us? No. Is really a huge focus here on the island and the West Coast on things like local food, urban farming, community gardens. You know, I live in Fernwood and there's 3 within a 2-block radius of me, which is kind of an anomaly. So there's a lot going on here, but it needs to continue.
And I think another aspect to that, which is described a little bit more on the website, is that there are barriers to getting local food, sort of like I mentioned at the beginning. I mean, I'm a student. I came out here. I couldn't afford it, right? And so even though it's probably better for me and I would prefer to buy it, I can't afford it. And so I think that's some of the reasons, too, why it's not a mass movement. There are some of us who are prevented from accessing it, for sure.
Which is kind of the ethical issue. Yeah, one of them.
Time also.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, if there are no further questions, we'll pass it on. Thank you.
In preparation for our presentation, and because it's so high tech and you can really experience 3D effects of the presentation, can everybody who is alongside fill in a seat that is around a table? I need all the seats around the table filled. So really help us out if you can move up. Even our group tables, there's an empty seat, just sit down there.
Try and fill in the seat that's already there. How about you?
Oh, we won't touch it.
I don't know. I'll talk to Tasha about it.
So over there is Japneet Marwa. I'm Adriano Lozer.
I'm Vance Tarnowski.
And I'm Ella Traversy.
All right, and we're going to do something really fun to start out with here. We really like garbage, and we want to share stuff about garbage with you. So the first thing we need you to do is reach underneath your chairs, and you'll find something stuck to the underneath side of the chair in green tape. Some are larger, some are softer, some are harder. So just be careful. If you can't feel it, go look under your chair, pull it out. Okay. Okay, everybody got their little green tape piece of garbage. Excellent. So right here is a representation of what you have at home to dispose of the garbage. And it's pretty simple. You'll see them around the school as well. You got your normal paper, your garbage, your black bin area, organic, and your blue bin. So in here, metals, plastics, glass. Right. So I need everybody in the most unorganized fashion to come up here and drop it in one of these piles and then go right back because we don't have a lot of time, okay? So just put it where it's supposed to go. And then leave. Go sit down. Don't hang around. Don't look at the garbage. Just put it where it goes. So this is what we saw around school, the places we work and live, at home, and it confused the heck out of us because if you look at this, it all looks pretty copacetic except for the fact that there is stuff in here that is recyclable that is going to go into the landfill. Every single piece of soft plastic that was put into this bin is going to go in general trash. It's just contaminated this recycling. It may even put the other stuff in the trash if it's taken. This will be thrown out on your lawn. This is pretty good, and I'm going to eat this avocado later. Ella says it's no good, but no confusion there. Here, for garbage, this is exactly where this would go. All of these soft plastic items that are piled there would go into that area and just go into the landfill. And for paper, this was probably in plastic. So this is pretty good for the paper, pretty good for the foods. But as you can see, I have a large pile of items that are all going to go into the landfill that are completely recyclable. So this is how we started our journey.
So we set out to try and get some actual hard solutions for the soft plastic issue here in Victoria. We wanted to get some concrete answers about why something that is non-biodegradable but recyclable is still ending up in the Heartland landfill. We talked to two groups pretty much exclusively and got two completely different answers. When we went to the city, they told us that, you want to know what? Victoria's doing a pretty good job of this. Only about 4% of the actual weight that ends up in our landfill is made up by this soft plastic. But here's the issue with this. You are more or less transporting air. This doesn't weigh very much. So 4% of something that weighs almost nothing is still a substantial amount. So we took off and talked to some folks around the city and found out that most people don't realize that you can recycle this here in Victoria. So for our ethical framework, we sort of focused on the rightness of the act, and we started to ask ourselves, what would happen if, especially those new to Victoria, and not knowing how to recycle this and throwing it in the landfill, what would happen if everybody acted the way that we acted?
1, 2, 3.
Why is it that my soft plastic is going into the landfill? Not too bad. Family can't get away from it. Gonna buy the toilet paper. It's gonna have plastic around it. You're gonna buy bread. It's gonna have plastic around it. You buy little snacks for the kids. They come with plastic around it. And every time we try to put it somewhere, we feel guilt because we don't know what to do with it. I will have to put this into the landfill. So I'm very curious to what my options are, and I'm really curious to why it is that these things go. My opinion on soft plastic and what I produce, it's fairly limited. So I thought I'd expand a little bit. Apparently, on my street, which is made up of about, I'd say it's about 20 houses, this is what we produce in a week. And I have a very good bunch of neighbors that were very happy to give me their garbage. And again, these are neighbors that are very conscious of what they're disposing of on a daily basis.
We know that it, never breaks down, and it's a shame to think that it's gonna go and sit in the ground somewhere and leach noxious substances into the soil.
You start to look at things and we're like, it's fun because you've got your recyclables, you've got your kitchen waste. I mean, we're getting very well trained. We put things in all these different containers, So while your bag was in the kitchen, we were putting things in 3 different containers.
Looking at it and going like, why don't they take this away?
Yeah, soft plastics is the next big piece. I don't know. I actually have very, very little garbage now that I've taken soft plastics out.
It's just not right.
Yeah.
If they're going to make it, they got to find a way to make it go away.
I mean, I always have guilt whenever I'm throwing anything away, especially something that can be recycled.
Just 2 days of not collecting it for you, I'm wondering, like, where does this go now?
This is a category of waste that there isn't a program for, and it could be incorporated if there's an end place in the city where this could go.
And if they could recycle that would be great.
I mean, it was a discipline to put things out in the blue box, but I think once you get on the bandwagon and you begin to pay attention, you start to think, this is something I can do. It's not a big something, but it's something I can do to help the environment.
Eliminating would be hard. It's not impossible, but it definitely changes the way you look at things.
We do it because it's the right thing to do and it's not difficult. So why would you not do something that's the right thing to do that isn't difficult?
So it can be done, there's no question. It's just a case of what do you do? How do you do that?
Saw what people around the city thought about their soft plastic. A lot of them mentioned, why isn't the city doing something about that? So I figured I would go and talk to the city about it in person, and this is what they had to say.
Film plastic is typically things like your plastic food bags, grocery bags, dry cleaning bags, those type of soft film squishable plastics like that. And they're also produced differently, meaning they have different properties, so they have to be separated. So it's like trying to mix oil and water. You have to keep the stuff separated, and that's one of the significant challenges with recycling plastics. They have a very, very low tolerance for contamination, and contamination can mean anything from a grocery receipt in your shopping bag to breadcrumbs in a bread bag. Why we don't collect it at the curb, we just at the current moment don't have the room on our blue box trucks to collect film plastics as well. It's a low weight, high volume material. One of the other challenges, of course, with recycling plastics like film plastics is the cost. Because you're shipping air around, it's very expensive to transport. It is, as I say, high volume, low weight material. People have a misconception that they're putting gold out in the blue box at the curb. Not so. I think residents of this community want to do the right thing, and if the opportunity to recycle something is provided to them, they'll, by and large, want to pick that up and run with it. So there's a lot, as I understand it, of opportunities and alternatives to disposal in the community. So most grocery stores, for example, will have a bin that their customers can bring their used plastic bags back to and put in for recycling. We have collection at our depot at Heartland. There are a number of private recycling companies that will also accept it for recycling. So there are alternatives out there if one chooses to pursue them. And I think that's what you're seeing with Victoria residents wanting to follow that and do the right thing for the environment.
All right, so what we heard from the city fairly clearly was that Victoria residents are already doing a pretty good job at this. But what we'd heard from residents was that lots of people had no idea what to do with this. We'd heard there were areas in the city where we could be dropping off our soft plastic for recycling, so we went to Ellis Recycle Limited to see what they had to say.
Ellis Recycle was established in 1994. It was just born out of necessity, basically. The owner, Ian Maxwell, saw an opportunity to create a business in downtown Victoria Core to divert materials from the landfill. We have facilities right across the road or within 2 blocks of us that take most of our material and recycle it here locally. We take from wood to garbage, drywall, soft plastics, hard plastics, styrofoam. We have different areas inside our facility here, and then it goes to a main staging area and then into one of our larger bins and then goes right across the street to Cascade Recovery. They'll pull out any kind of contaminated materials and then bale it, and then it gets shipped to Merlin Plastics in the Lower Mainland, and then they'll go through the plastics, clean it, palletize it, and then sell it on the world market from there. Soft plastics is a tricky word. It's basically filmy plastics, grocery bags, shrink wrap, forms of plastics like that. It's hard to quantify on a daily basis what we get, but we do get a bin's worth of material full once or twice a week. It's almost a 50-50 spread between commercial businesses, construction companies, real estate companies, stuff like that, and residents of Victoria, Oak Bay, Esquimalt, Saanich. I think the CRD saw the need to help Victoria residents in their recycling needs, and the My Recyclopedia is a great way for residents of Victoria to not only figure out what's recyclable, but where they can take it locally as opposed to having to drive out to Heartland landfill. So, and we've been around so long and been working with the CRD for, like I said, 20 years that it was just kind of a natural that we'd partner with them. We're local, we're close, we're easy, and we're a very cost-effective way of dealing with your recycling.
So after speaking to residents, the CRD and local recycling areas close by, we had a general idea of kind of what was going on. But along that process, we also had one of our group members, Alyssa, who can't be here with us today because she's gotten a job. And she, yeah, woo, Alyssa. And she started a vlog, so she tracked her progress for 10 days. Adriana, if you could go to the blog, Challenger blog, and she tracked her progress through 10 days to see how she did, what she felt, and how her day-to-day activities changed when she was trying to minimize soft plastic. So that's her blog right there. She also has a vlog, which is on the video, but you can check that out on our website. Our website is recyclesoft.victoria.com, and you can check out a couple of links that we have, giving you different, like the My Recyclopedia that was mentioned in the Ellis Recycle Limited video as well. Now, heading back over to this pile right here, now you guys have noticed that all of this is going to the landfill, right? And I want you to just think for a second, what if everyone in the world, what would the world be like if everyone did this? And this is just what we got in a couple of days. Now, after hearing this and knowing the different places you have, imagine how the world would be if everyone would now do what our team has started to do right now. So we encourage you to recycle your soft plastic and bring it into the right and appropriate locations. to save the world and make sure it doesn't end up in the landfill and it won't decompose, and it's pretty crappy. Any questions?
Is there a cost associated with going to
Yeah, right now you can recycle at the Heartland landfill. They're doing a pilot program, but the problem with that is that Heartland landfill is way out of town for most people, and it is a $5 or $6 per vehicle charge. So basically what that means, if you show up with like a bag like this filled with about a week's worth of soft plastic, you're going to pay $5. Or if you show up with garbage bags full, you're going to pay the same amount. And that's the same with Ellis as well. And when we spoke to Ellis, we did talk to them a little bit about their cost. And what they really wanted to reiterate was the fact that they are a local business here in Victoria. They've been here for about 20 years, and they are working and employing people here in the community. And that's basically the standard fee that you're seeing all over the place. When we talked to the CRD about it, their number one response was that by weight, they can't say that there is enough soft plastic going into the landfill to put in the infrastructure to recycle it. So right now, these private recyclers, like Ellis or there's Pacific Mobile Depot and several other sort of cooperatives around the island and just the city that you can get involved with, and there's a link to those on our website as well.
But you can see what, like, again, 17 homes, right? 17 homes, and actually the green bags were produced by Habitat. So one restaurant and 17 homes produce that giant pile of plastic. So it really is knowing that it can be dropped off, because you can produce the volume. And as we discussed with Ellis, if the volume is produced, then the infrastructure comes, right?
maybe get a cooperative in the neighborhood?
Yeah, it's basically getting it there. And there's 3 ways. Pacific Mobile Depot, which you can check on their website, and every 2 weeks they go to a different location. You can drop it off. $5 giant bag, and a giant bag takes you 5 or 6 weeks to generate. Ellis, and then CRD. All $5.
I recycle my plastic bags at fairways. You'd like to bring them in, put your soft plastic in a plastic bag, and hide anything that's not a bag and put it in.
Right. So, like, and this is actually what we found when we interviewed people. Is like, how do you deal with it? Well, I just hide it with my plastic bags that I return to Fairway, and then they take it away to the magical plastic ferry, right? Which is a good way, but it's just not. At the end of the day, they are paying for your soft plastic recycling. So that's great, but it couldn't work as a system. That thing. It's a good cheat, but it just can't work altogether. And that's what we find is people are guilty. They just don't know what to do with it, right? So they will do that. Yeah.
And I think that was a huge thing in our project as well. It sort of changed as we got into the project and started to talk to people and find out what infrastructure was there and what wasn't. And basically what we found out was that the information and the knowledge wasn't really there. And if the city and recycling depots can even do more just to get the word out there that you can do it, it sort of puts the onus on the residents to make this choice and to decide how would it be if everybody acted the way that I acted. Like, everyone can make this little bit of a difference, and that's sort of what we realized as we sort of dug through these ethical issues. Any other questions or comments?
I'm wondering if you look at it from the point of view of the producers of all the soft plastic, that, you know, I know that's an entirely different issue, but I'm just wondering if is there a conscious push on the part of any...
We actually had, when we interviewed Tom Watkins at the CRD, he gave a great interview with a lot of really sort of environmental facts that weren't really to our point, but he talked about how next year in BC they're going to be putting some sort of a tax system on producers of this stuff. They can't justify it right now to sort of build the infrastructure. It would cost, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars per garbage truck or recycling truck to change this, to be able to do it. But they're going to be putting the onus on producers. And we asked the tough question of, do you think that's going to change the way they package things or the way they handle it once it's packaged? And he just didn't have those answers for us, but I think that's December of this year or next we'll see some changes.
But could you eliminate it, though? Like, in terms of, I mean, the world is wrapped in plastic. So try hard. There are websites you can find out. People are trying to do it. Big lobby, lots of money.
Thank you.
Thank you for waiting so long, Team 5. Last but not least.
pallets, so we're ready for the next lovely flavor.
The last flavor.
Where is that great sweet sorbet anyway?
Yeah, that'd be nice. The last presentation of the entire. Holy cow!
All right. So we are the creators of H2. Uh-oh. We are.
I'm Darcy.
I'm Caitlin.
I'm Leslie.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Robin. So by a show of hands here, who has bought a bottle of water in, say, the last week? All right, a pretty good number. So you've all contributed to the ethical issue of water privatization in Canada, whether you support that future or not. So the privatization of water in Canada is a growing ethical debate as our precious resource is being depleted by corporations, while the Canadian government contemplates whether or not to implement policies to restrict the extraction of this water. So we have created the H2 awareness campaign to bring attention to this subject for Canadians in a lighthearted and creative way. So today we will look into the issue of water privatization, not only in Canada, but the impact on a global scale, which Darcy will discuss. Then Caitlin will talk about the impact it has on Canada, and in particular, the Nestle case study, which is the initiation of our project. Steve and Leslie are going to go through our awareness campaign, taking a look at the website and our social media sites. And then we're going to end the presentation with our 4 awareness videos, which we hope will create exposure for Canadians on this issue in kind of a humorous and lighthearted way. I'll pass you off to Darcy.
Thank you, Robin. I'm going to kind of give you guys a bit of a backgrounder on like what's happening internationally with water privatization. What we have here is a situation where there's a lot of like developing nations like in South America and in Asia who are interested in improving their infrastructure as far as water quality goes. Unfortunately, they don't really have the funds to do that, so they have to go to the World Bank to borrow those funds in order to kind of build that infrastructure. Now, the World Bank, what they do is they're happy to give that money to those countries, but there's a condition. The condition is that the infrastructure doesn't get built and managed unless there's a private corporation that is actually doing the building and managing of those sources and distributions of water. So you have places like Santiago, Chile, which is, you can get clean running water out of the tap there, but all of that water is actually owned by a French company called Vivendi. And that kind of situation is actually happening in a lot of different places. There are countries that do kind of resist that kind of condition, like in Kenya, where they do have infrastructure for water for citizens, but a lot of that water is not really the best quality. So that actually works in favor of the corporations as well, because you see in Kenya where corporations like Coca-Cola actually take advantage of that situation where they can now go and provide water to its citizens through independent shops, and what they do is they sell water. Actually, the water in Kenya, to buy bottled water costs more than it does to buy a can of Coke. So. Yeah, anyways, the countries are very vulnerable, developing nations, very vulnerable to corporations coming and claiming their water. But that's not just a problem for developing nations, it's happening to a lot of different nations, and Caitlin is going to discuss that a little bit further.
Thanks, Darcy. So, in 2010, the UN resolved that water is a human right. It is a human right to have access to clean drinking water and sanitation. 221 nations voted in favor, and Canada abstained completely. Right? Yeah. Ooh. I found that a completely shocking fact. And only in 2012, which is last year, did Canada formally say, okay, I guess it's a human right. At this time, Canada has no water security policies or acts in place, and the last policy that was written on water in Canada was in 1985. That act does not include any water management in regards of protecting our water from big corporations at all. So another interesting fact is that when you look at policy making, its bureaucratic nature is that the words really count, right? So if the UN calls water a human right, organizations like NAFTA, which Canada is a part of, calls water a commodity or a service. Those are two polar opposite ways of viewing something that everybody needs to survive, which is fascinating. So, as we have no federally legislated protection of our water, right now it's being managed provincially, which takes us to our case study, which is what all of us found absolutely fascinating and had to dig into. So, in Guelph, Ontario, Nestle Waters Canada is taking 1 million liters of water per day from a well. They have a permit to do this, and they pay for the water. However, the permit that was given to them had a restriction on it saying, okay, yeah, you can take 1 million liters of water a day, but during periods of drought, you can't take as much, which is fairly reasonable. However, Nestle appealed and said, no, that's not fair. We're the only organization that has that restriction implemented on us. We don't want it. And the crazy thing is that the Ministry of Environment said, yeah, you're right, and took it off, just like that. So now you have a bunch of advocate organizations like the Council of Canadians and the Wellington Water Watchers saying the federal government is not stepping up and is not protecting the public trust. Like, we are not being protected, which means that we make an awareness campaign. Leslie, would you like to go further?
Sure. So our campaign about the ethical ramifications of water privatization, we needed a place to capture this, and so we created a website, h2uh-oh.com. So as you can see on the main page, it hosts all the videos that we created, which are the main grounding part of our awareness campaign. And for the purpose of the presentation today, we'll go through a few screenshots just like this, but we really want you to visit the website and you can find our theoretical analysis for the ethical side of the issue as well. The videos were short, quick, kind of a commercial style. We hope that you find them funny. And the goal in doing that was that we felt by integrating the Nestle case study into these videos, people would want to share them, and then that creates greater conversation about water privatization, not only locally in Canada, but also internationally.
So our About Us page has a quick snapshot of the team there, tallest to shortest. Thank you, Max. And brief background on each member of the team. Although we are based out of Canada, we do offer a Learn More page, which has links to resources and other organizations related to the topic to get people who are interested kind of involved a little further. Also, we are utilizing popular social media channels such as Twitter, YouTube, and Facebook to distribute material and further the conversation.
So before we take you into the videos, we want to leave you with a little statistic. So how much would you think that this case of water costs? Anybody? To purchase? Yeah, so yesterday we purchased this case at our local thrifties for $3.69. How much do you think Nestle pays each day to the Canadian government to extract that $1 million from that well in Ontario?
Ontario government.
Oh, the Ontario
Million
government.
liters.
Million liters.
Yeah.
$3.71 that they then translate after production into $2 million of profit.
Yeah. Isn't that crazy? $3.71 a day.
So we'd like to leave you with our kind of our 4 lighthearted but telling videos, followed by a little blooper reel as well. So you guys can enjoy this here. Yeah.
I had no idea it was gonna be this good.
We are illegally in the RRU pool. We have broken in. The croissant. We just heard a voice outside the change room. Hopefully we haven't been discovered. He said Ranger Steve to check on the situation. H2O back on.
Good.
Ooh. We're eating. Schneider's wings? Was not enough.
Give Steve a kiss.
Sorry.
That concludes our presentation. Any questions, comments? That's the end. No, it's not. Virginia?
This and several other of the resource sites that have been created around these projects, I think are just really valuable. And I wonder, I know you have other journeys to take, but I wonder if the Council of Canadians or some other people might benefit from your work. What do you have any plans for kind of thing.
I think it would be neat to let them know, at least, that we've created it, and if it would be of any use to them, for sure.
Because they could get this out on social media and
integrate the two channels.
Yeah,
for sure.
I think you also brought out some really good systemic issues that are underneath a lot of these ethical problems, right?
Why don't you stand up there and do your Virginia thing now, Virginia?
Because I'm just commenting on this one.
You're sort of sounding like you're doing your Virginia thing.
Oh,
and
not
it is
quite.
the end.
Not quite. It's when I tear up that I'm into Virginia mode.
Give her the mic.
So really my comment was, I learned a lot from this, and I think your strategy of using humor is really powerful. These indeed could go viral. Anything that has a dog in it could go viral first. Steve, you really missed your calling. Like I just hope you go into acting. And I really hope that you take a few more minutes. I know it's hard because you're feeling really done, but I really do feel some organizations could use this. Certainly schools, Council of Canadians, and anybody else you've identified, like the Suzuki Foundation, whatever, who might be interested in making this available to people, because it's a great way to learn.
It's also a great way to get yourselves out there.
Yeah. Anybody else?
All the presentations, and I'm just wondering how, having not being in the class, can we access these? Because I would love to show them to my children, to other people as well. I think we're all. Is there a way other than copying down the websites? Or?
Probably. We haven't really thought about it.
I don't have everybody's email addresses. So.
Yeah, there's sort of.
There's also, some of these have copyrighted. I don't think all of these are meant for public.
Yeah, I mean, it sort of depends on these creators because of privacy issues. So, but one thing that I've done is started to create at least a little YouTube channel that I was mostly going to share with students, but of public YouTube videos that students have made. So these are already public, so they kind of go by that. So if you're interested, perhaps we can like brainstorm ways of having that sent out. You guys, can you just remind maybe everyone of your website address?
h2uh-oh.com, but there's a dash, so it's h2uh-oh.com.
Yeah.
Maybe what we could do is set up a sheet. People could just write their email addresses on here. We can get links to all of the websites and just bomb out an email to people so you can go and look at greater length, because all of these have such rich content in them.
For sure.
I'm nosy. I want to see what's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really conscious of the time, so I want to just really, again, reiterate the amount of work and polish, and you can't even imagine the amount of work that went into these. And you guys have done, like, the polishing on this group's stuff has been so top-notch. So I really applaud you all. It's been amazing working with you all. And I want to just offer Michael a moment, or Virginia a moment, before we like have our final applause.
I just want to point out how much we're indebted to so many people. The other instructors in the program, some of whom have been here today, Rob and Dan and Dave and the people that give you so much technical assistance. Tasha, most of all, who has her very subtle ways of seeming low-key, but dragging great stuff out of you. And I think that was really evident. I also think that Virginia needs a lot of credit for what she's done in kind of putting this whole system together, getting the courses and the people in place. And it's very satisfying too that the content is there, as well as the technique. Her technique, some of my content. I don't always, in fact I've never done this, when the Olympics end, it's common for the president of the International Olympic Committee to make a speech, and he usually, particularly Juan Antonio Samaranch, who's famous for this, says, "This year's were the greatest Olympics ever. And the interesting thing is the few times when he didn't say that, it was very devastating to the host city that they weren't called the greatest ever. But I think that in terms of overall quality and across the board, I've never seen a better
I totally agree with him.
better group.
Totally
These
agree.
are really exceptional.
Yeah.
I look forward to it. So most of all, congratulations to all of you who made these, okay? Thanks.
Virginia's turn to cry. Yeah. Well, these are it's always very strange the way we end, and I wish we had big budget to do a gala, something that's at the very end of the program. However, we don't. One of the reasons Royal Roads is an interesting and unique place to work is because we make do with much less in the way of resourcing than other universities, and students are part of making that happen, as well as all of the beloved instructors who are here today. Some are watching Laura's watching, by the way, from Ontario. So everybody say hi to Laura. Hi, Michael alluded to the work that goes into creating a program that has you doing such fine, outstanding, interesting, professional level work after only 1 year. It's really basically you've been here a year, because pre-res for the next cohort starts next Tuesday. So you've been at this for a year. And when I met you, I think I heard Martin Buber mentioned, and the way I approach my job, being that overseer of the program, is my desire is for all of us by the end of this program to have an I-thou relationship rather than me and you and those guys and us guys. And I know all of us struggle throughout the year in our various little cliques and teams and instructor discussions. There's crisis and struggle all through the year. It comes up when you least expect it. But it's really true that this cohort has pulled together, that you're kind to each other, that you forgive each other, that you find ways to move forward, and that it's really evident in your work that you've just turned into this great group of people. And I hope that you keep these connections going from today forward. Not all of you will be intimate with each other over the years, but I hope that you hear about when people get hitched and when they have babies and when they've got the new job and when somebody's ill and needs some support, because I see a lot of friendship here in the room. I was very moved today by, I really care about ideas, and I was really moved by the big ideas that you were exploring and how, but I'm also very moved and interested in intuition, and I loved how those two things came together. I was part of the discussions when you were first planning or trying to come up with a pitch for your ideas. And it's all really loosey-goosey at that point. It's like, oh my God, we've got to get this done in how many weeks, and we don't even know what we're doing. But what I see you knowing how to do now is how to learn and how to trust that gut instinct that, hey, I'm interested in that, and I'm just going to be on that like a dog on a bone. And I heard many of the teams talk about how they started out with what they thought was a very clear idea, and Tasha spoke to this, that you allowed yourself to be vulnerable to the chaos and the uncertainty and look at the good that came out of it. I'm really serious that I think many of these projects should be shared with a wider audience, and one of the things I will work on next year as program head is how to set that up systematically so that it happens every year, even long after I'm gone, so that we have everything in place at the beginning of this project so that you can be sure that your work can be shared out there if you want it to be, that all the music is copyright okay, etc., etc. I will be sending you out a longer letter and an email where I can share a bunch of tips and tricks with you about how to bridge this time between the end of your program and the beginning of your new lives in your new worlds and your new work and your new families. So I'll leave all that to later. But what I really want you to feel like today is not really the end of anything except maybe the beginning. You've had a really good beginning here, and I know you've had beginnings before, but as a cohort, you've had an intense year of starting something new. Some of you are super certain about where you're going next. Some are still like, geez, I thought I knew what I wanted to do, and now I've come across new possibilities, and I'm not so sure. I want all of you to know that we care about you. We want to hear from you. We want you to call and email and text and say, hey, I'm kind of struggling right now. Can I talk to you, Virginia? Can I talk to you, Tasha? Can I talk to you, Michael? I've got a few ideas about where to go with my work, but I don't know what to do. We're kind of a nutty bunch of professors here, and we really do like that human interaction. We work here for a reason, so we don't have to have a stadium full of students with people whose names we could never remember. And the more that you keep connected to the school and to the individual instructors and program head and program associates, the more that we can have that really authentic relationship with you ongoing. So we want to hear about how you're doing, whether it's a struggle, whether it's a success, if you have a job to offer a possible BAPC grad. We do have BAPC grads now phoning to say, I need somebody, can you send us somebody? So that's the kind of relationship we'd like to forge with you. I feel like I got ripped off this year because I didn't get to teach a class for you. And so Michael, you really got to know them, right? There's something really special about that instructor-student relationship, and I feel bad. I tried to make up for it in other ways by dropping into your classrooms and being part of residency in that way and lurking a little bit here around Capstone. I would like to continue those relationships. In that message I'm going to send out, I'm going to teach you how to ask for a strong reference and how to make sure that you know how to approach us when you need professional help from us, but more informally, just please keep in touch and let us know how you're doing. I think that I'll leave it at that for tonight, for this afternoon. Adriano, there's going to be a function in about an hour, right?
Yeah, so,
would you like to come up?
Yeah, sure. Just quick.
For those of us who would still like to share the love.
All right, so makeshift function today, 4:30, which is in 1 hour, at the Canadian Forces Base Esquimalt Gun Room. So just Google CFB Esquimalt Gun Room, and you'll find your way there. It's in Esquimalt, just by West Bay Marina. So 4:30, bar, and yes, Japneet?
After this, if we can relocate to LIC for 10 minutes and cry our eyes out with our warm fuzzies, that'd be great. Grant, that's what I meant.
LIC?
No, Grant, that's what I meant. In our classroom,
Yeah.
where the warm fuzzies are.
Yeah, so everyone is welcome to that thing at the gun room, so everybody knows that. So please come out and have a beverage, and bring $5 if you want to pitch in for pizza.
And I'll just finish with one more thank you, and I forget about this because we get into our little our little world here, but when we opened this residency, I'm always aware of the mothers and fathers and grandparents and aunties and uncles and children and brothers and sisters and colleagues and coworkers and bosses who make it possible for you people to take a year out of your lives, invest all of that money and all of your energy and more to make this happen. And so I would like to thank those invisible, mostly invisible people who I know are out there, to say thank you so much for sending your people to us, for believing in them, for helping us get everybody through this year, and enjoy the new version of your beloved. Okay, thanks, everyone.